Welcome to my channel. Get ready for an incredible journey through captivating tales and unforgettable adventures. Subscribe now to join our community and never miss a story. The world is confronted with its unavoidable destruction. As comrades who have endured countless hardships, the 10 most powerful knights tasked with protecting the continent have now exhausted their life force in mana. Death permeates the tainted lands that stretch far and wide, and it is all caused by a single entity known as the demon commander Gluttony. In the darkness of night, a young boy stands amidst the lifeless bodies of hundreds of people, grieving for the devastating damage inflicted by Gluttony. The immense and monstrous Gluttony looms over him, making the boy seem small and insignificant in comparison. Despite recognizing Gluttony's strength, the boy refuses to surrender his life. He picks up a hammer and unleashes a powerful lightning attack against Gluttony, demonstrating his determination to resist. However, Gluttony mocks the boy's efforts, urging him to give up as they seem futile in the face of such overwhelming power. Striking Gluttony once again with a hammer, the boy named Raven demands that he stops taunting him. With a mighty strike from above, Raven unleashes a technique known as meteor objurgation, cleaving the monster in two with his warhammer. In a retort to its taunting, he responds with, "Noisy bastard." From a different angle, the potent technique releases a surge of lightning that obliterates the monster, accompanied by a massive explosion signaling the defeat of Gluttony. He seeks a moment of peace amidst the chaos. However, as he gazes at the monstrous Gluttony, Raven realizes that he might meet his end alongside this formidable foe. He comes to the realization that he has run out of mana. The realization dawns on him that perhaps everything went wrong right from the beginning. Mana training was a closely guarded knowledge reserved for distinguished knights and nobility, which made Raven's path arduous, filled with numerous failures, and progressed slower than others. Despite starting from the lowest rank among the knights, he held a firm belief in overcoming any challenge. Yet now he questions if his conviction held true. Reflecting on the past, Raven wonders how different things would have been if he had received proper training methods from the beginning. Such preparation could have enabled him to save the continent and all its inhabitants. As he touches the wound on his belly, he laments the depletion of his mana. Considering Gluttony's power as the 7th among the demon commanders, Raven can't help but ponder the true strength of the other commanders and the dreaded demon king lurking in the shadows. In the middle of nowhere, Raven is sitting alone when suddenly Sword Emperor Odin von Valencia appears in a pitiful state, covered in blood, and asks if Raven is still alive. Odin regrets that he won't survive much longer and, before his end, he wants to ask something curious. He asks Raven why he didn't flee from the battle. Perplexed, Raven inquires what Odin means by that. Odin explains that he had heard Raven was once a child from the slums, seemingly having nothing to protect. He empathizes with the hardships Raven must have faced. Raven shares that he was curious about what Odin was going to ask, but now he feels a bit embarrassed. He confesses that he detests appearing weak, believing that a true man should always exude confidence. He firmly asserts that he wouldn't run away, no matter the circumstances. In response, Odin bursts into laughter. Raven looks at him and comments on his remaining strength, noting that Odin can still find the energy to laugh despite his condition. Odin commends Raven, expressing approval, and tells him that he trusts the talent that has earned Raven a place among the 10 strongest knights, a feat he should be proud of. Odin then requests that if Raven ever returns, he should seek him out. Perplexed, Raven questions Odin about his intentions. Odin clarifies that if Raven were to impulsively visit him, the Odin from their past wouldn't believe him. So he promises to share one of his secrets. Odin proceeds to disclose that his daughter's original name was Lily, inspired by a flower he and his wife admired. However, the truth is that Odin didn't particularly like that flower. He urges Raven to remember this crucial piece of information and to find him as soon as possible. Confused and unable to comprehend everything, Raven feels his consciousness slipping away. Suddenly, he awakens in a room that feels oddly familiar, lying on a bed. He ponders whether he has entered another dream. Looking beside him, he spots his sister, her head resting on the bed while he sits on a chair. This surreal scene leaves Raven questioning if he is experiencing yet another dream. Raven finds it unimaginable that he must relive his painful past once more, a past filled with sorrow, where his sister's lifeless body was taken away immediately after her passing. Soon after her demise, unwanted intruders burst in. The thought of Rena, whom Raven holds disdain for hiding the ring, infuriates him. However, in reality, it was Raven who concealed the ring, but his sister ended up bearing the brunt of the attacker's fury as she tried to protect him. Abruptly, the door slams open, and two men enter the room, complaining about how they nearly faced consequences due to her actions. Determined to teach her a lesson, one of the men violently kicks the chair on which Raven's sister is sleeping and crudely commands her to wake up. Seeing his sister in such a vulnerable state, Raven recalls how he barely survived with his frail body while she selflessly cared for him despite her injuries. Now, as she falls to the ground after the kick, the other man wonders if she's already dead from a single blow. The man who delivered the kick chuckles wickedly, proud of his hectopascal kick. But callously, they continue their torment, seemingly oblivious to the fact that Raven's sister is already deceased. The men's audacity doesn't end there, as they even attempt to take away Raven's sister's lifeless body. One of the men questions the other, pondering why he bothers with a dead body. The other man coldly explains that there are sick individuals who derive pleasure from corpses, not to mention the lucrative market for organs and fresh bodies. Helpless and lying on his bed, Raven desperately shouts for them to stop, questioning whether he is unable to protect anything, even in his dreams. He implores his hand to move, and to his astonishment, it responds. Taking action, Raven attacks the men, and much to his surprise, he manages to knock both of them against the wall. This bold move allows him to save his sister's lifeless body. Infuriated, the men grow angrier and accuse Raven of seeking his death. They brutally beat him, but he refuses to let go of his sister's body. Eventually, the men decide to leave, taunting Raven as a persistent runt who will spend his life with his sister's dead body. As the men depart, Raven notices that the nightmare's conclusion has changed, unlike the relentless loop he had experienced before. Perplexed by the sudden shift, Raven looks at his hands and realizes he can manipulate mana, an ability he didn't possess at this age. Memories of Odin flood back, and he begins to wonder if Odin was the one who sent him to the past. Gradually, Raven comes to a startling realization: this is not a dream but rather a chance to alter the future. The possibility of changing the course of events now lies before him. Overwhelmed with emotions, tears stream down his face as he curses Odin, wishing that he had been sent back a little further in time. Despite coughing up blood and feeling the frailty of his body, Raven recognizes that venting his frustration is futile. He recalls that even the Sword Emperor Odin himself wasn't entirely confident in this power. Nonetheless, Raven echoes Odin's last words, promising to find him as soon as he can. He reassures the Sword Emperor that once he completes what he must do, he will not hesitate to make his way to him. Raven decides to perceive this opportunity as a chance to finally allow his sister to rest in peace, a task he couldn't fulfill in his previous life. Vowing to seek revenge on the person who took his sister's life, a man known as Wolf, Raven reflects on how he barely managed to kill him in his past life by snapping his spine. This time, however, he is determined to exact proper vengeance before anything else. Raven has a destination in mind. With his sister, he carries her to her funeral, gazing at her lifeless form on the deathbed with a heavy heart. Speaking to Rina, Raven expresses his feelings. Although they did not share a blood connection, their rare black-colored eyes and hair were the only things that united them. Among the invaders, he faced rejection and harm due to these traits. However, Rina saw him as a symbol of her lost brother. She named him Raven and showered him with genuine love and care. The profound sense of gratitude and indebtedness weighs heavily on Raven, knowing that he can never fully repay his sister's kindness. During the funeral, Zara, Reyna's red-haired friend, notices a subtle change in Raven. She attributes it to Reyna's passing and recalls a recent visit to his room, where she found him sipping soup by his deceased sister's side. Zara also observes that Raven's wounds have healed. In a solemn and poignant moment, Raven lifts his sister's lifeless body onto his shoulders and walks out of the room. Curious about his intentions, Zara asks where Raven plans to go, considering his injuries. However, Raven insists that he's fine, to which Zara counters that he clearly isn't. She wonders why Raven seems more receptive to Reyna's words than hers. Looking up at Zara, Raven expresses gratitude for the soup, assuring her that he will repay her kindness. Afterwards, he proceeds to hold a funeral for his sister Rina, with Zara standing behind him. During the funeral, Zara contemplates Raven's intentions, while Raven resolves that organizing the funeral is his way of making amends to Rina. He chooses not to blame himself or be disheartened, believing it aligns with what Rina would have wanted. Recalling Reyna's advice to always be courageous and hold his head high, Raven stands beside her casket and commits to living by her words. Gazing up at the sky, he implores Rena to watch over him from above. With unwavering determination, Raven vows not to have any regrets this time. 1 month later, on a starry night, Raven stands in the middle of a street, determined. He psyches himself up and tells himself, "Let's go." A passerby notices Raven and recognizes him as the beggar kid from the slums. The person comments that they can collect money from Raven later. Curious about Wolf's whereabouts, Raven asks them directly. This angers the men, and they can't believe Raven dares to mention Wolf's name. One of the men attempts to slap Raven, but to their surprise, Raven catches his arm and questions why he can't do so. Defying the man's expectations, Raven twists his hand, causing the man to scream in pain and kneel on the ground. Baffled by Raven's sudden strength, the other man wonders if he found some sort of potion. However, undeterred, the man decides that despite Raven's unusual strength, he's still just a little brat and tries to grab Raven by his collar to throw him away. Much to their surprise, despite the man's efforts, he can't lift Raven up and questions why he feels so heavy. With a smirk, Raven asks the man if he's wondering what's happening and if he feels heavier than expected. He taunts the man to give up because he won't be able to succeed. Raven swiftly kicks the man away and admires his progress as he has successfully integrated his mana body, a feat he couldn't accomplish in his previous life. Merging a body made of mana with the physical body seamlessly enhances one's power through their mutual interactions. This is the core principle behind the secret technique Raven has developed. Although potent, the technique requires consuming much more food than usual due to its effects. Having devoured Zara's 10 days worth of food, Raven feels grateful for her assistance. The man who was just kicked by Raven desperately crawls away to save himself, but Raven pursues him. With newfound insight, Raven informs the man that he realized something after recreating his mana body. Freshly awakened mana more easily finds its place in damaged bodies. Fearfully, the crawling man inquires what he means. Raven grabs the man by his leg and sends him flying through the air, expressing gratitude for messing with his body. The other men witness the scene and rise to their feet, wondering if an intruder has entered. They glance at Raven, questioning who he is and speculating if he might be the beggar brat. Two leaders positioned above the fray observe the unfolding events, surprised to see the kid arriving alone. They question what he intends to do without a weapon. In response, Raven confidently retorts, grabbing one of the men by his foot and skillfully using him as a makeshift weapon, swinging the man around. He strikes everyone with his improvised weapon, sending them soaring through the air before landing with resounding thuds. One of them even loses his teeth from the impact. Raven addresses the leader standing above, declaring that he is done with the small fries and that what remains are the formidable Render's brothers. He challenges them to come down and face him. One of the men draws his sword, threatening to cut Raven in two. The other leader informs his comrade that the kid is a mana user, and selling the corpse of a mana user can fetch a high price. Realizing that the person's foot he was using as a weapon is badly broken, Raven discards it. He recalls an incident when an old man noticed him using a human as a weapon and advised him to have some class. The old man taught Raven the importance of learning hand-to-hand combat. In the present, Raven believes that with hand-to-hand combat, he can maintain his dignity. The two leaders launch an aerial attack on Raven, wielding their swords, but Raven remains calm and evades their assaults with agility. He retaliates with a series of punches and kicks, targeting one of the leaders and sending him flying through the air. Seizing the opportunity, Raven swiftly grabs the man by his collar and hurls him forcefully to the ground. With his agility, Raven swiftly follows the man as he falls to the floor, positioning himself in front of him just as he lands and delivering a powerful kick to his side. The moon shines brightly outside, casting its glow on the chaotic hideout as our hero fights. Their ruler named Wolf takes notice of Raven and demands to know his identity, watching as his comrades are defeated one by one. To Raven's surprise, he learns that Wolf considers him to be a mere punk from a distant area, unaware of his true heritage as a member of the esteemed Beastman tribe, known for their superiority among the demi-human races. In his previous life, Raven faced the daunting task of defeating Wolf, a remarkable silver werewolf with royal lineage. This revelation leaves Raven wondering why such a powerful being is present in this place and time. Nevertheless, Raven is determined to uncover the truth. When Wolf questions if Raven is responsible for the current situation, Raven sarcastically asks if Wolf cannot already tell. This provokes Wolf, who threatens to harm Raven by ripping his mouth off. Undeterred, Raven welcomes the challenge and encourages Wolf to give it his all. In response, Wolf undergoes a transformation, turning into a golden wolf. This astonishes Raven, who taunts Wolf by questioning the nature of his transformation. Raven ponders why Wolf's fur isn't silver as it was in his past life. Raven asks what kind of puppy have he become, the words infuriating Wolf. Wolf's red eyes become filled with rage upon hearing the word, puppy. In response, Wolf charges towards Raven, initiating a battle between them. With agility, Raven skillfully avoids Wolf's attack, swiftly evading the strike. Despite the sudden increase in Wolf's speed and strength, surpassing even the Render's brothers, Raven realizes that Wolf is not the same as he was in his previous life. Reacting swiftly, Raven seizes Wolf's mouth, silencing him, and questions if this is all Wolf has to offer. Tossing Wolf aside, Raven smirks, recalling advice he received from a fellow beastman about dealing with berserk kinfolk. As Wolf rises uncontrollably and attacks without hesitation, Raven remarks that beating a crazed dog is the best approach. He kicks Wolf repeatedly, causing him to cough up blood. Despite the beating, Raven urges Wolf not to submit yet, as he needs to keep hitting him until Lisa arrives. Following the advice of the beastman, Raven continues to kick Wolf, causing him to scream in pain. The beastman had assured Raven that it is acceptable to inflict some harm since beastmen possess excellent regenerative abilities. Finally, Raven delivers a powerful kick that sends Wolf crashing into a wall, causing him to revert back to his human form. Raven questions if Wolf has come to his senses, but Wolf implores him, asking why he is treating him this way and what he wants from him. Disregarding Wolf's inquiries, Raven sternly declares that this time it won't end with just his spine. He demands that Wolf beg his sister, Rena, for forgiveness for the harm he inflicted upon her. Determined to bring solace to his sister's spirit, Raven clasps his hands in a prayer gesture, closes his eyes, and hopes that this act provides some comfort to her. Returning his attention to the miserable figure of Wolf lying on the floor, Raven asserts that if it were up to him, he would have taken Wolf's head. In response, Wolf swiftly kneels and acknowledges his wrongdoings, apologizing to Lady Rena for his actions. Raven commands Wolf to cut off a part of himself and bring it as an offering to his sister's grave. However, he has a change of heart, realizing that his sister probably wouldn't want to see Wolf's face even in the afterlife. Instead, Raven instructs Wolf to answer his questions while he beats him. The first question he poses is about Wolf's presence in this place. While confronting Wolf, Raven's attention is drawn to a nearby stone. Curious, he picks it up and realizes that he has never seen this stone in his previous life. To his astonishment, he identifies it as a demonic key. A wolf with silver fur emerges from within the stone, attempting to break free from the oppressive black and red aura that surrounds him. In Raven's past life, he recalls strolling through a forest with a girl who wanted to introduce him to the spiritual creatures residing there. The girl explains that spiritual creatures are sentient beings reborn after accumulating mana for at least 10 years. Raven expresses surprise at the existence of spiritual creatures beyond Elbenheim and the rarity of animal spirits. The girl then asks if Raven is aware that the soul of a spiritual creature is a spirit, though not a spirit tamer himself. Raven confidently affirms his knowledge. Holding a stone in her hands, the girl asks Raven if he knows about the quintessence of a spirit in the present day. Raven discovers a similar stone near Wolf and holds it in his hands, recognizing it as a spirit stone, while Wolf continues to apologize. Raven's attention is drawn to the valuable stone he discovered, and he finds it intriguing that a werewolf possesses such a precious item. As he examines the stone further, Raven realizes that it is emitting demonic chi, commonly associated with spirit stones of demons. Peculiar chains materialize before him, and he is determined to address these strange chains. He delivers powerful punches, breaking them and releasing a trapped silver wolf. Perplexed, Raven wonders if this is a memory of a spirit and questions why the wolf is surrounded by individuals emanating demonic chi. These individuals attack the silver wolf, causing it to bleed and collapse on the ground. One of them takes the wolf's spirit stone and hands it to a child among their group. Trying to comprehend the situation, Raven questions the identity of the child and the reason for handing him the spirit stone. He realizes that these malevolent individuals are creating beastmen by forcing people to absorb spirit stones, transforming them into wolf-like beings. Raven observes Wolf, who continues to apologize, and deduces that they were created through the absorption of spirit stones, but this time the process was incomplete. As the silver wolf continues to attack the other wolf, now transformed back into a human, Raven intervenes by jumping in between them. He urges the silver wolf to stop, believing that the other guy deserves a less wretched fate. To his surprise, Raven realizes that the silver wolf can understand him, even though he doesn't consider himself talented in spirit taming. This recollection prompts him to remember his conversation with a girl named Astina in the jungle, where she mentioned that a human could become a spirit tamer if they possess a pure soul and sufficient mana. Raven contemplated that only young children possess the purity needed for such an endeavor. However, upon realizing his own youth, he doubted whether he possessed the necessary purity. Observing this, the silver wolf shook its head, leaving Raven curious about its intentions. The silver wolf gently pats Raven on the head with his mouth, leading Raven to realize that when he broke the chain, his mana flowed into the wolf's spirit stone, allowing them to communicate. Raven decides to form a contract with the silver wolf and extends his hand towards him. Raven considers providing the silver wolf with just enough mana to ensure its survival, thereby making it a valuable ally. He reflects on the fact that most spirits grow stronger as the spirit tamer's strength increases, which was one of the reasons why Astina was considered one of the best among the 10 knights. Noticing the growl of the silver wolf, Raven understands that it is requesting a favor. As their eyes meet, Raven realizes that the wolf wants him to seek vengeance on its behalf. With mana flowing into his hands, Raven assures the wolf that it is not a big deal, as he had already planned to eliminate all individuals associated with demonic ki. Raven reaches out and touches the silver wolf, knowing that the final step in forming a contract with a spirit is to decide the name. He ponders how he should name the wolf, and Raven affectionately pats his head while holding his paw, observing his silver fur resembling the moon. They settle on the name Lunar Wolf. Raven gazes at the apologetic wolf and wonders about the mastermind behind the creation of beastmen with spirit stones. He suspects it might be the work of demon worshippers, fanatics who reject avatars and instead worship the demon king. These malevolent worshippers had already caused chaos in the world even before the demon king's army appeared. Although Raven was in the labyrinth at that time and lacked the full details, he feels frustrated. He kicks the apologetic wolf out of frustration and demands that he be quiet. Raven then asks about the child who gave him the spirit stone, questioning whether he is one of the demon worshippers. As the wolf remains in a subconscious state, repeatedly apologizing, Raven realizes that he is still not fully aware of his surroundings. He beseeches the lunar wolf to wake him up with a mighty roar, and the wolf manages to snap him back to his senses. Raven persists in asking about the child and wonders where to find him. The wolf responds with a single word: organization. Intrigued, Raven probes further and asks what they are doing. In response, the wolf pounds the floor and laughs, warning that the organization won't let Raven escape their grasp. He reveals that he was merely a test subject and, before he can divulge more about their great power, an unexpected explosion decimates his head. Raven is intrigued, wondering if they placed an enchantment on the wolf's mouth to prevent him from revealing crucial information. As he ponders this, a memory from his past life resurfaces, where a man had warned him about their organization relentlessly pursuing him. Initially, Raven assumed that the man was talking about his subordinates on the first floor. However, when Raven defeated those individuals, they were unaware that Wolf was a beast man. Deciding to set it aside, Raven acknowledged that he hasn't always used his head. Amidst the chaos, Raven noticed a crack in the wall emitting a mysterious blue glow. Recognizing its importance, Raven firmly grabbed Wolf by the arm and questioned whether he should start reclaiming what was once taken from him. With a forceful throw, Wolf collided with the wall, and Raven, contemplating how he would handle the situation if he were the sword's emperor, saw his wolf once more. Recalling a story shared by Emperor Odin, Raven contemplated sharing it with Odin someday. Placing Wolf's hand on the illuminated object in the wall, a door opened, and Raven entered, referring to Wolf as his old ally but swiftly amending it to a future ally. This led to a treasure room where Raven picked up a ring, asserting that he needed to take the Valencia family's ring. When Raven was in a pitiful state as a very young child on the street, a girl approached him, inquired about his name, and remarked that it was cute. The girl then took off one of her rings and gifted it to him, advising him to seek her out with the ring when he needed help. As Raven looked at the ring, he recalled that everyone in the Aslan Empire knew her as Chloe von Valencia, Chloe, the youngest daughter of the Sword Emperor Odin von Valencia. In Raven's previous life, he couldn't retrieve the ring as his quest for revenge took time and finding assistance was challenging. However, this time, the ring could be of great help. While stashing the ring in his pocket, Raven wondered where the Sword Emperor could be, smirking as he felt the time was right. Leaving the scene behind, Raven overheard a group of people discussing the dead bodies strewn on the ground, realizing that he is undoubtedly a mana user. The commander among them questioned if a single child caused all this mayhem. The commander scolded them for using a drug he had warned them about. Commander Axel, in charge at File's outer castle, wondered how Wolf was handling his men. Seizing the opportunity to raise his protection fee, Commander Axel decided to use the situation as an excuse. Spotting Raven standing there, he recognized him, and people around the commander began talking about him. The commander questioned whether Raven was responsible for all the chaos, and Raven confirmed it, descending the stairs. The commander then questioned whether Raven comprehended the magnitude of his actions. Raven expressed that he was dealing with corrupt individuals and questioned why a knight like the commander needed to intervene. In Raven's view, it seemed like Commander Axel had been accepting excessive bribes from Wolf. Enraged, Commander Axel retorted that Raven had a lot of nerve and tried to attack him. Raven observed that Axel had only reached the second level of mana usage, slapping away Axel's approaching hand. With a swift move, Raven kicked Commander Axel, aiming to send him flying back through the stairs. Holding back from drastic actions, for now, Raven understood the vast number of knight troops under Commander Axel's command. Commander Axel complimented Raven on his abilities, but without warning, Axel threw a punch, sending Raven flying backward. Realizing that he shouldn't make the estate head his enemy just yet, Raven understood the vast number of knight troops under Commander Axel's command. For the time being, Raven opted to make Commander Axel leave on his own. Descending the stairs, Axel noticed him and questioned why Raven didn't attempt to take the blow. Launching another attack, Lunar Wolf suddenly appeared behind Raven, startling Axel, who wondered if it was a spirit. With the situation seemingly calmer, Raven decided to engage in a conversation with Commander Axel. He asked Axel to be honest and acknowledged that this issue didn't concern Axel as long as he received the money. Commander Axel inquires about Raven's point, and when asked such a question, Raven proposes to Commander Axel that instead of receiving payment from Wolf, he could be paid with money. Commander Axel is taken aback by the suggestion, surprised that such an idea could come from a kid. He then asks Raven about his age and wonders if he used magic to transform himself. Raven clarifies that he is a native of this land and points out that he is well known for his black hair, unlike an invader. Commander Axel accepts his explanation and asks if Raven can pay him 5 white gold coins, the amount that Wolf used to pay. Raven finds the amount ridiculous and jokingly asks how far Axel plans to go with his demands. He suggests offering 1.5 coins instead, stating that Wolf used to pay him 1 coin, further infuriating Commander Axel. However, Raven remains firm and tells him they can conclude their business there and then if he doesn't agree. Amused by the situation, Commander Axel comments on the world coming to an end with a kid negotiating like that. Eventually, he relents and decides to leave. Before leaving, he reminds Raven that the last day of the month is the due date for the payment, and he expects Raven to keep his promise. Onlookers inquire if Commander Axel is really going to leave like that. In response, Commander Axel slaps one of them, telling him to be quiet. Meanwhile, Raven calls out to Axel from behind and tosses a coin toward him, which he catches. Raven explains that since the ownership of the place has changed, the new owner should at least greet the estate head. He asks if Axel can arrange a meeting with the estate head. Axel agrees to report the matter to the estate head but warns Raven to pay on time or face the consequences of the estate head's wrath. Smirking confidently, Raven assures him that if there will be any next due date, he'll make sure to handle it. As the people start leaving, Raven stops them and gives them an hour's notice. He instructs them to gather everyone, including the gay members, women working in the invader, and the begging kids, warning them of the consequences of being late or attempting to escape. Raven threatens that he will take a life every minute for tardiness, and if they try to run away, his spirit will track them down and end them. Raven reminds them not to forget they have only 1 hour. The group quickly scurries to follow his instructions. Holding the ring in his hand, Raven contemplates how this plan could lead to taking control of this place in just a week. He expresses his anticipation to Duke Valencia upon their return. The people are out of breath, and Zara rushes to hold Raven's hand, concerned about his injury. Raven reassures her that it's not his blood and reveals that Wolf is already dead. Zara looks at Wolf's lifeless body in disbelief, observing the fear in the people's eyes. Raven realizes that they are afraid that the estate head won't spare anyone who challenges his nobility. Everyone in the invader knows that the estate head is backing Wolf, and the people worry about the consequences if they are punished for attempting to challenge the nobility. Holding a book, Raven scoffs at their concerns and questions the consequences for the estate head of Files, who is making a mockery out of Valencia. Outside the castle, two guards are engaged in a conversation. One of them remarks that he hasn't seen Sir Ram around lately and wonders if he might be on vacation. The other guard questions if he hasn't heard the news about Ram being under probation due to an incident in the invader. The first guard appears surprised and asks if Ram did something wrong. The second guard reminds him about the fight that erupted among the local thugs and how they all claimed to see a giant monster wolf coming after them. The first guard recalls the incident where everyone seemed to hallucinate simultaneously. The second guard agrees and adds that their leader, Wolf, was in a terrible state and lost all his money mysteriously. The first guard connects the dots and explains that during Ram's negotiations with the new boss, a problem arose. Every shop and store in the town are closed, and the visiting merchants expressed their grievances as they haven't been making any profits lately. The other guard remarks that it's understandable for the estate head to be angry, which may explain why the new boss has been summoned. Meanwhile, Raven listens in on their conversation, and the guard asks the other guard about the name of the person they were talking about earlier. Raven recalls when he held a book and asked about the fate of the estate head of Files, who was ridiculing Duke Valencia. Zara questions what he's referring to, explains that in his past life, he used to believe that all nobilities were the same. Even after inspecting the account book, he failed to notice anything amiss. Following the estate head's request, Raven handed over half of Wolf's fortune and the account book. However, in return, he only managed to gain a few acquaintances from Invader. Nevertheless, things are different for Raven now. Despite not being the brightest individual, his experience as a knight has taught him that there are nobilities who stand far above the rest. While holding the book, Raven catches Zara's attention, and she asks him if this will lead to the downfall of the estate head. Raven advises her not to worry about understanding it at the moment since it's not crucial. Perplexed, Zara asks him to clarify, and Raven reassures her that the most important thing is that nobody in Invader needs to fear Wolf anymore. They are all free from his tyranny. Zara is taken aback and asks if they are truly free now. Raven confirms it and encourages them to seize this last opportunity for revenge or to release their pent-up anger. Enraged, Zara marches towards Wolf and strikes him, cursing him for destroying her prosperous family. She swears not to let him die peacefully. Others present also join in the march, vowing to avenge their friends who were brutally beaten by Wolf. Sitting back and observing, Raven realizes he lacks the skill for comforting others, and it doesn't align with his method of repaying debts or healing wounds. However, he advises the people to take back as much as they desire from this situation. Money can be a great aid in this process. Raven informs them that the treasure belonging to Wolf is available for anyone, especially women and children who were compelled to stay in Invader. He encourages them to take the money and leave. One of the women among them asks if he is giving them all this money and wonders if he is serious. Zara raises a question about what Raven intends to do. He reassures her that he is fine as he already obtained the money he needed. Zara insists that everyone in the world needs money, but Raven explains that it's important to understand the source of this money. Even if they send the wicked guy to hell, the money will remain on Earth. As they look at Wolf's treasure, the people express astonishment at the vast amount of money they see. One woman wonders if she could have all of it. Addressing the crowd, Raven offers a piece of advice and warns them against committing wrongdoings for money or leaking any information to the estate head. He cautions that his friend Lunar Wolf will track them down and tear them apart piece by piece if they betray their trust. Raven suggests to Zara that if she's leaving the estate of Files, he recommends going with Luna. He advises her to always travel in a group and hire mercenaries from a reputable guild. Confused, Zara asks if he means they are leaving on their own without him. Raven explains that he has other matters to attend to. Understanding his decision, Zara expresses confidence in his strength and assures him that they will follow his advice and head to Luna. She tells him that if things become too difficult for him, he can always find her. In gratitude, Raven thanks Zara for everything. As a result of their actions, the red light district of Files Invader is now closed. Meanwhile, the guards who were previously discussing the new boss begin to wonder about the new boss's name. Suddenly, Raven emerges before them and confidently states, "Raven." The guard notices his presence and asks how long he has been there. They assert that, as a commoner, he shouldn't be lingering in the area where the head and the legions reside. The guard is perplexed and wonders how this child knows the name of the new boss. Raven confidently explains that he is the new boss. Suddenly, Lunar Wolf appears, frightening the guards, who promptly flee in fear. Raven sighs, frustrated by the fact that people always react strangely to his childlike appearance wherever he goes. Inside the castle, Raven stands before Ron, the Grand Master of Files Night Order. Ron acknowledges having heard about Raven from Ram but comments on his young age. Displeased with being kept standing, Raven remarks on the lack of courtesy in letting a guest stand while they are being observed. This angers Ron, who asserts that Raven needs to understand his place. In response, Raven stands his ground and reminds Ron that the same goes for him. Unfazed by the fact that the Grand Master draws his sword at him, Raven questions Ron's sanity, given that Raven is the guest of the estate head. Ron taunts Raven, remarking that it's no surprise his tongue stinks given his background of living in the trash. Unfazed, Raven retorts that he can't be certain about his tongue, but the stink seems to be emanating from Ron himself, who has the most rotten mouth among the Knight's Order. This response infuriates Ron, and he instinctively reaches for his sword, only to be stopped by the old man who intervenes and informs him that the head has been waiting for Raven. Reluctantly, Ron puts his sword away and cautions Raven to be careful inside, as the head is known to be strict. Brushing off the warning, Raven dismissively responds, yeah, of course." Secretly scheming to eliminate Raven as soon as he gets permission, Ron leads the way to the door of the head's office, announcing the arrival of Raven, the one from the back alleys. The head instructs them to enter, and as Raven lays eyes on the head, he wonders if that figure is the estate head. Raven greets the ruler of Files by bowing down, and the head asks where he learned his good manners. Raven explains that he practiced a bit to be polite in front of him. The head, who is also Baron praises of Files, Baron praises Raven's ability to act like a knight. While this is happening, Raven thinks that he's having trouble getting used to this situation. He wonders if Baron is the same overweight estate head he knew in his previous life. As Raven reflects, he remembers that Baron had a drug problem back then. He wonders if Baron looked like this before he started using drugs. Despite the change in appearance, Raven knows Baron was a noble in his past life and still is now. Anyways, Raven realizes that an account book going to the Duke of Valencia could harm Baron's position. This gives Raven the opportunity for proper revenge. Baron talks to Raven and mentions that he didn't treat Sir Ron the same way. Raven responds by asking how he can treat the boss and a worker in the same manner. Raven says he wants to work for Baron as well. This makes Ron angry. Baron then asks Raven if he sees the leader of their group as someone to compete with. Baron shows surprise at Raven's big dreams, but then Baron questions Raven's age. He wonders if Raven might have a mix of dwarf or elf ancestry. Raven lets Baron know that he's only 13 this year, which surprises Ron. Baron says it doesn't matter since they can see Raven right in front of them. But Baron points out that even though Raven wants to work for him, he has taken Baron's money without permission. Baron asks Raven to explain why he did that. Raven tells him it was for Baron's own good. When Baron hears that, he comments that he initially thought Raven was clever, but now it seems he doesn't quite grasp how things work in the world. Ron asks Baron if he wants him to immediately remove Raven from the situation. At this point, Raven steps in and asks Baron if he's aware that the Duke of Valencia has launched a crackdown on drugs and prostitution. Raven adds that he's certain Baron knows that Lady Valencia paid a visit to his territory. He reveals that he learned this information from her associates, and his aim was to tidy things up for Baron before any problems arose. Raven smirks, feeling pretty sure that he's sharing the truth and doesn't think Baron will run into any trouble if he decides to dig deeper into the matter. Baron thinks back to an occasion related to their youngest daughter's special ceremony, recalling that they were planning something significant at that time. Ron tries to brush off these thoughts as being just ideas from a child, emphasizing that Valentino is known for its not-so-good places. But before Ron can go on, Baron interrupts him and tells him to be careful about what he's saying and asks him not to go too far or cross certain limits. Quickly recognizing his mistake, Ron promptly apologizes. Baron responds to Raven, acknowledging his point and agreeing that if Raven's words hold true, even if the approach is rough, it's something commendable. Raven expresses his gratitude for Baron's understanding. Additionally, Baron raises another matter he wants to clarify. He observes that it seems Raven has command over a wolf spirit, wondering if Raven obtained this spirit by taking it from Wolf's spirit stone. This revelation surprises Raven, leaving him curious as to how Baron could have known about this. As Lunar Wolf makes an appearance, Raven notices a circle formed from demonic energy near Baron. This leads Raven to contemplate whether Baron is a dark magician. He reflects on the idea that devils typically demand sacrifices in return for lending their power. With the presence of a second circle magician, Baron appears to be someone who is engaged in disturbing and dark practices, perhaps even involving the sacrifice of numerous lives. These thoughts trigger a memory for Raven, hearkening back to a scene where two men stood over his sister's lifeless body. One of the men questioned the other about why he bothered with her body, given that she was already dead. The other disturbingly replied that there are individuals with twisted inclinations who find pleasure in corpses, not to mention that organs and bodies can fetch a considerable sum of money. Raven's memory takes him to another incident where he confronted two leaders in a fight. In that encounter, one of them looked at Raven and casually remarked that due to Raven having the body of a mana user, it could be sold for a high price. This realization dawns on Raven, connecting the dots and leading him to the conclusion that Baron was the one who had been purchasing corpses from Invader. Another piece falls into place in Raven's understanding. Wolf had the support of a dark magician. Baron directs a question at Raven, asking why he's not responding. In response, Raven admits that he doesn't grasp the essence of Baron's inquiry. This visibly agitates Baron, who then instructs Ron. Responding swiftly, Ron unsheathes his sword. Recognizing that facing both of them simultaneously might be a challenge, Raven summons Lunar Wolf in response. Lunar Wolf's appearance startles Ron enough for him to step back, while Baron sits calmly on his sofa. Baron remarks that Raven truly holds authority over the forest. Contemplating the current situation, Baron acknowledges that they have no choice but to consider acquiring a new test subject. This leads Raven to wonder about the subject in question, pondering if Baron plans to use him as a replacement for Wolf in their experiments. Baron inquires with Ron about Raven's level of power, and Ron provides the information that Raven is on the brink of reaching level 2. Seeking clarification, Baron asks if this implies that Raven is already comparable to a knight. Ron clarifies that unless Raven comes from a well-known family that imparted mana manipulation training from a young age, it's quite remarkable for him to have attained such proficiency. Ron adds that it's unlikely Raven acquired this skill entirely on his own, highlighting the precision and stability of Raven's mana control. In response, Raven elaborates that he inherited this knowledge from his family's closely guarded tradition. Baron proceeds to question Raven once more, prompting him to provide an accurate response this time. Raven deliberates on whether he should reveal the true source of his training. He realizes that they might not believe him if he claims to have developed it independently. Consequently, he informs them that he learned it from his late parents, who passed down the knowledge before he arrived in Files. Raven expands upon his explanation, describing the breathing technique as something he has been practicing since infancy. He notes that due to his recent increase in strength, he has come to realize that it's a unique and distinct method. This realization prompts a smirk from Raven as he muses about Baron's chances of verifying the truth, given that Baron has accepted refugees from various places to bolster income from Invader. Raven believes it will be impossible for Baron to trace his background or records. Raven then presents his presence before Baron as evidence of his authenticity. Baron concurs, agreeing that Raven's presence does indeed serve as proof. This outcome surprises Raven, finding it easier than he had expected. Baron discloses his intention to verify Raven's details through someone referred to as he. This mention of he leaves Raven curious about who exactly Baron is referring to. Baron instructs Raven to wait for a while. He explains that since Raven's actions led to Wolf's demise and subsequent turmoil, he needs a scapegoat to assign blame. This concept of blame puzzles Raven, prompting him to speculate on who might be implicated. He wonders whether he is linked to the organization Wolf had mentioned earlier. Raven also contemplates the possibility of he being a powerful dark magician, a prospect that he finds concerning. Baron urges Raven to respond, reminding him that Raven had previously expressed a desire to serve Baron. He implies that the offer at hand may not be unfavorable to Raven given his earlier aspirations. Raven offers a bow, expressing his willingness to comply if Baron issues such an order. With a respectful tone, he then inquires whether he is an esteemed guest. Baron confirms this, advising Raven to exercise more caution and politeness in the presence of he. In this moment, Raven recognizes that he still holds a card to play. He calculates the timeline required for the Duke's men to verify the authenticity of the account book, about 3 days, the assembly of a punitive army, another 3 days, and the army's journey to Files, approximately 10 days. Adding it all up, this totals a little over 15 days. With this timeframe in mind, Raven proceeds to inquire about the arrival of Baron's guest. Baron responds to Raven's question with curiosity, wondering why Raven is seeking this information. Raven explains that understanding the timing is crucial for him to appropriately prepare and exhibit proper manners. Amused by Raven's approach, Baron chuckles and asks if that's the reason. He then reveals that he is expected to arrive in a week, advising Raven not to disappoint him. This revelation leaves Raven feeling disheartened, as it seems his strategy may not align perfectly with the anticipated timeline. In his chamber within the head's castle, Raven engages in a warm-up routine, all the while reflecting on the question, did he mention a week? This pondering brings to light two distinct choices. The first option involves fleeing. Raven considers that the residents of invaders should have had ample time to depart by now, which means that escaping alongside them might not be too difficult if he decides to take this path. Outwitting the head's men could potentially be managed without much trouble. However, Raven recognizes the potential complications that could arise from this choice. Being placed on the head's wanted list would prove problematic, especially when it comes to his planned meeting with the Sword Emperor. Since Raven has certain expectations from the Sword Emperor, he understands the importance of avoiding any actions that might jeopardize those future plans. Furthermore, the mere idea of running away doesn't sit well with Raven. Despite his lack of strength, he has always approached challenges with the mindset of finding a way to conquer his adversaries. Considering the second option, Raven questions the legitimacy of the guest's impending arrival within a week. He ponders whether this visit is truly an official one, particularly given how the estate head had addressed the guest with an air of high nobility. Moreover, the conspicuous absence of people within the estate head's residence just before the guest's arrival raises suspicion in Raven's mind. Raven's deduction leads him to believe that this could be an underhanded, unofficial visit. He deduces that the supporter behind the estate head is likely someone who cannot openly reveal their identity. With this in mind, he contemplates the potential outcomes of an unforeseen major event in Files before the guest's scheduled arrival. Such an occurrence could shift the focus and attention toward the estate head's home, possibly resulting in the postponement or cancellation of the visit. Although this approach involves a considerable level of risk, it aligns with Raven's customary approach to challenges. However, he acknowledges that for this strategy to succeed, he needs to significantly bolster his own strength. This is crucial to effectively overcome both the Grand Master and the estate head. Sensing mealtime approaching, Raven concludes his warm-up session and departs from his room to the cafeteria. In the cafeteria, a cook attempting to serve food inadvertently spills it outside someone's bowl, prompting the recipient to admonish the cook for his inattentiveness. Following the cook's gaze, the recipient looks towards Raven with curiosity and astonishment rippling through the cafeteria's occupants. All of them are taken aback by the sheer amount of food Raven appears capable of ingesting. Some even wonder if Raven possesses dwarf lineage, given the notion that dwarves share an appetite similar to orcs. Raven's mana-infused body, which has overcome its earlier problems, gets a little stronger every time he eats. His power increases as he eats more. This special ability means he doesn't need to use medicines or herbal treatments. From behind, someone approaches Raven and addresses him. The man poses a question, inquiring if Raven is the same homeless boy who learned his manners from a dog. In response, Raven offers a succinct response, a simple, "yeah." This prompts the man to chastise Raven, urging him to exhibit respect when interacting with adults. With a flesh-less bone clutched in his hand, Raven sneers in disbelief, mocking the idea of receiving respect, especially from someone who is picking a fight with a child. The man demands to know what Raven said, and in response, Raven playfully tickles the man with the bone, all while pointing out the ambiguity of his intentions. He questions why the man can't make up his mind. This exchange ignites a surge of fury within the man, prompting him to forcefully strike the table nearby. A man named Gren intervenes, urging the man to calm down as Raven is just a youngster. Meanwhile, Ron approaches Gren from behind, instructing him to stay composed. Remaining composed in his seat, Raven suggests to the man that if he's curious about Raven's strength, he should go ahead and inquire. The man warns Raven not to be all talk and no action. Internally, Raven braces himself for the forthcoming confrontation with the Grand Master. He quickly corrects his thought, realizing that it's not just the Grand Master but also the estate head who is the driving force behind the situation on the battlefield, and that man Finn stands face to face. Finn issues a challenge, inviting Raven to come at him while warning that he will personally teach Raven a lesson. In response, Raven raises a question, asking Finn if he's truly certain he won't regret this choice. Amused by the term, regret, Finn chuckles and urges Raven to arm himself with a sword, emphasizing his intention to swiftly settle matters. Tauntingly, Finn questions whether Raven is feeling fearful. Displaying a hint of overconfidence, Raven replied, "Well, if you say so." Without warning, Raven swiftly kicks Finn's legs, causing him to stumble backward from the force. Finn is taken aback, almost losing his balance. He grits his teeth in pain and clenches his fists, preparing to retaliate with a punch. However, Raven skillfully evades the attack. Raven channels mana into his legs and launches another powerful kick, striking Finn's other leg. Once again, Finn experiences the searing pain, causing him to question if this is the strength of a mere level 1. Determined not to be defeated, Finn infuses his legs with red mana, realizing that he cannot afford to lose in this manner. Raven remarks that Finn is quite resilient. In a fit of rage, Finn raises both hands, attempting to deliver an overhead hammer punch. However, Raven swiftly maneuvers between Finn's legs, disrupting his momentum. Raven then turns to face Finn. Finn is taken aback by the sudden turn of events. As he looks back, he sees Raven airborne, wrapping his legs around the back of Finn's neck. Raven firmly grasps Finn's head and chin, reassuring him that he has no intention of killing him. Suddenly, a loud scream echoes throughout the area, and in the next moment, Finn lies on the ground unconscious. Raven casually claps his hands, as if to brush off the fight as if it were nothing. The spectators were in disbelief as Sir Finn was defeated by a young boy. Following the fight, Raven notices Ron looking at him, and their eyes meet. Ron then turns around and walks away. Raven contemplates how he intentionally defeated a knight in front of a crowd, without relying on the assistance of the lunar wolf. He acknowledges that not many people possess such capability. As the defeated Finn is escorted away by others, Raven contemplates how his actions will likely give pause to the feudal head's intentions to remove him. As he wraps his hands, Raven considers that this accomplishment has increased his chances of success. However, suddenly, he feels a strange sensation, as if his body is weakening, and he nearly collapses to the ground. Right now, Raven is thinking of whether he went too far with his actions. He had to beat Finn because he wanted to become better than him, even though it wasn't an easy choice. This happened because Raven had to use up his magical energy unexpectedly. If this had happened in his old life, he would have had to try really hard. In Raven's past life, his magical body wasn't as good, his physical injuries healed quickly, but his mana took a long time to come back. But now, in his new life, his mana body is fully integrated, which means he doesn't have this problem anymore. He can do tough training without much trouble, and he's getting much stronger than he was before. Baron is sitting at a table to eat, and his servants are bringing him food. Raven is nearby too. Baron realizes that what he thinks about Raven is wrong because recent events have shown that Raven is reliable. Raven expresses gratitude to him for believing in him and personally checking on the situation. He receives a plate with a piece of steak on it. Baron lets Raven know that the steak is made from veal. Baron also mentions that they have prepared various other dishes, and Raven is encouraged to enjoy as much as he wants. In a polite manner, Raven responds that he feels they might have prepared too much food for breakfast. This surprises Baron, who had thought that the powerful attack Raven used to defeat the knight was fueled by Raven's hearty appetite. Raven explains that the events from yesterday unfolded because the knight had lowered his guard. In response, Baron tells Raven that he is being too humble and expresses his strong anticipation for Raven's promising future. Baron adds a touch of regret, mentioning that it's unfortunate there isn't a mentor available to guide a talented individual like Raven. Raven acknowledges that many knights in history grew up without a teacher, yet the ones who truly excelled often had a great master to guide them. Baron asks Raven if he learned about history. As Raven sits at the table with his meal, using a knife and fork, Baron notices that Raven has also learned how to behave properly while eating, just like Baron suspected. It's becoming clear that Raven is not an ordinary person. In his mind, Raven realizes that he acquired these skills from his previous life. Baron continues to talk, saying that if his guess is right, he understands Raven's thoughts. He suggests that there might be a way to figure out more about Raven's background by considering that place. This makes Raven curious about what that place could be. Baron then says that he will explain all the details. Baron adds that they got in touch with him yesterday, and he was really happy about it. In Raven's thoughts, he finds Baron's behavior puzzling, and he suspects that Baron might be addicted to something. It looks like Baron is okay because of the magic circle's power, but they don't know when the demon might want it back. In Raven's previous life, it seems Baron was left behind by someone important during the war, and that's when he lost his magic. While sipping his tea, Baron tells Raven that he should be excited about meeting this important person. Baron lets Raven know that this person, whom he refers to as him, is significant and will give Raven an important job. Raven says thank you to Baron for this chance. Raven's determination grows as he engages in rigorous training with a dummy. Despite his concerns about him and the organization mentioned by the Baron, he decides that there is no immediate need to delve into that matter. Instead, he focuses on the present and ensures that he is well prepared for whatever lies ahead. The estate head is a second-level magician, and Ron is a powerful second-level fighter. Ron might be a bit stronger, but they're about the same in terms of skill. This is because magicians and fighters who use mana are at similar levels. In his past life, Raven had already surpassed this stage, so he's determined to move up quickly. He thinks he can do it in 6 days. After 3 days, Raven is still practicing, and he realizes his body might be small, but he's definitely become much stronger. His flexibility has increased, and his weight and strength are concentrated in a better way. Raven's movements are much better now compared to his previous life. He understands now that his overly big and powerful appearance was a problem in his old life. He just wanted to be large and strong, and his unconscious mana body reacted to that desire. This made his body overly big and disrupted the balance between his mana and physical body. He realizes that being big doesn't always mean being strong. 2 men approached the training area and saw the little kid who had destroyed Sir Finn's ankle. They get scared and decide to leave, saying they'll come back another time. Raven politely asks them to stay away from him. Over the past 3 days, everyone has lost interest since Raven has been eating and training non-stop. Ron comes over to the training area and notices Raven. He tells Raven to come with him because the estate head wants Raven to get armed. Raven notices Ron's sword and thinks it's perfect timing. Ron mentions how highly the estate head thinks of Raven, so he asks Raven to appreciate it. They go into a locked place, and Raven looks around. He sees armors that seem expensive, but none of them fit him. Then, Raven notices weapons, but there's nothing like a mace or a warhammer. Feeling a tinge of disappointment, he believes that this method won't allow him to earn extra money. Raven then asks Ron if he could obtain a sword similar to Kranz's. Ron, filled with pride, promptly responds and questions whether Raven believes his sword resembles an ordinary iron blade. He proceeds to speak about his sword, known as Grius, crafted by the renowned swordmaster Rogers. In response, Ron cautions Raven against coveting something beyond his current capabilities. Raven wonders if Ron comprehends the immense effort invested in creating that particular sword and suggests that it might suit him even better. In a playful manner, Raven remarks that good weapons should be wielded by skilled individuals, emphasizing that it is for the benefit of the estate leader. Ron becomes increasingly angry and questions if Raven is seeking his death. The intensity of Ron's anger is palpable, even to the guards nearby. In response, Raven suggests that if Ron dislikes the situation so much, they should settle it immediately through a competition. Raven takes hold of Ron's sword and boldly declares that if he loses, he will offer his own life. This statement further fuels Ron's fury, causing him to shout, "You bastard!" and swing his sword at Raven.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more content. Feel free to leave a comment down below sharing your thoughts or suggestions. If you want to stay updated on all our latest uploads, click the notification bell icon. And hey, why not check out some of our other videos popping up on the screen right now? If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by liking, sharing, and subscribing. It really means a lot. Peace.